Chazak Baruch, Chodesh Tov, Bruchim Vayim everyone. Welcome to my student Abior, Baruch Haba. So we are in Siman Reish Nun Bet. So one last example before heading back to the Shulchan Aruch of things that you start before Shabbat that you're allowed to carry into Shabbat. So but here's a little bit of a different case where let's say you have a washer machine or a dryer where it's okay, let me put the load in before Shabbat starts, and I know it's going to go into Shabbat. So you might think like, okay, that's like a regular case, like all the situations we've been talking about. The difference is that there's number one, hashma'at kol, where there's sound that it's like, oh, so there's the washer on, is the dryer on, there's something, there's sound in it. And it could also be like a bet charosh, like a factory type of machine that's going on, which is Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul, one of our recent Sephardic Gedolim. He ruled not to do such a thing because it's like a weekday thing going on, and because of the hashmat kol, because of the sound that's going on, and it's kind of like a I don't want to say factory, but like a weekday thing going on. So that is not supposed to be You're not supposed to be doing it for those reasons. So too in factories as well, a person maybe he'll set a timer or start I'll start production on Friday afternoon, and I know it's going to carry into Shabbat. So there as well. Shouldn't be done. There's an exception where if, let's say, there's certain machinery that it needs to run 24/7. If it doesn't, it could ruin things. Just to start it up again might take 2-3 days. So in those different cases where also it's not near Jewish communities, and it could be locked and no one's accessing it, but it just needs to run the whole time. And of course, it started when you actually started it was before Shabbat. Then it could work out in that case. The Shulchan Aruch, back to the Shulchan Aruch. So he gives a few other cases. So the first one, where we left off, velatet unin shel pishtan latanur kedei shidlabenu. So this is putting in linen into an oven before Shabbat, and it's going to take a long time. But throughout Shabbat, it's going to turn white, whatever the situation is. So that you could do because you put it into the oven before Shabbat. Or velatet semer letoch hayora, putting in wool into a vat of dye so that it takes time for it actually to turn to that red color that you want. So you could put it in before Shabbat and it could sit in there over Shabbat. But here there's a few exceptions, and these exceptions are connected to various halachot. So one exception is that it can't be on the fire. So again, you're putting this wool in this vat of dye before Shabbat, but it can't be on the fire throughout Shabbat. Because Shema Yechateh, here we're introduced to it's called Shema Yechateh. You might come and stoke the fire so that it might make the fire hotter, and now it's going to make your clothing, your wool that's in there, it's going to go faster. Shema Yechateh, and also even if it's off the fire, it needs to be covered because Shema Yagis. You might come and mix it. So now let's say it's off the fire, but it's still hot. But if it's not covered, then okay, it's not covered. I might come on Shabbat and stick in the big spoon, the big ladle, and turn it around. And if I turn it around, then it also makes that it goes faster. So it's also kind of like chayav mishum mevashel. It could be obligated because of cooking. So here's some cases where okay, I could start it before Shabbat, but if on Shabbat I might come to enhance the process, I got to stay away from there. And that's what we're going to get into for next week. Let's say I have food on a hot plate or food on a blech. A blech is a metal sheet covering the fire, and it has to cover the knobs as well because Shema Yechateh, nowadays we don't have people don't usually have a fireplace where they cook, and you might come and actually stoke the fire, but you might come and raise or lower the temperature. So you need to keep your food on Shabbat, before Shabbat, when you put it on to a hot plate, because that's what happens all the time with our dafina, with the chamin. You put it not fully cooked. You start it before Shabbat. Now it gets ready Shabbat morning. But you have to put it in a way where you're not going to come and stir it on Shabbat in the pot, because that enhances it, and also that you're not going to come and change the fire mode because as well it's going to kind of make it cook faster. So here's where we're introduced to, yes, you could start things before Shabbat, carry into Shabbat, but you can't come to a situation where you might come to make the cooking go faster on Shabbat. So we'll talk more about those types of situations next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Mincha tonight at 6:45. Have a good day, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov.